Hello friends, welcome back. Welcome to Kavita's classroom. And now we have reached the last leg of the producer's behavior, and that's the chapter Theory of Supply in Hand today. Have you ever thought of why and how this module has been made for you? To know about producer's behavior, a producer, the one who has to produce, right? So he's always interested in what is going to be the trend of his production, right? Total output, average output, right? And how fast he would be making, how slow the things would go. So for this production function is there, then he has to think about if he is going for production, what all costs would be incurred in the same. And if after production he has to sell the same, so he would definitely be having some revenues generated out of that, right? But which should be the ideal level of production so that the difference between the cost and revenue is maximized and hence he is getting the maximum profits. So he has to go for his equilibrium situation, right? By checking out MC is equal to MR and MC is going up later on. And then when he thinks, he decides that now that he has just checked into the market, how the trends are going to be, what are going to be his expected flows of cost and revenue, and where should he be targeting at which level of output, then he actually starts supplying. So point is, with these all modules, we try to check out the behavior of a producer in the market, right? And that's why these 5 components together give you the producer's behavior. And today, after working on all these 4, we have reached this chapter supply. Right. It's going to be very interesting, very easy as well. Why? Because we have already covered the consumer's behavior and demand pattern, right? Demand and supply, they are just the two opposite sides of the same coin. So if you are well aware of the concepts of demand with little here and there, it's only the slope which is different, right? The basic concepts and the things go just parallel with that chapter. So if you have good understanding of that chapter of demand, I hope you would not be stucking up anywhere in supply because it carries the similar concepts. So let's begin. So when you talk about supply, what does that mean? Various quantities of a commodity that producers are willing to sell at different possible prices at a point of time, right? Then they say, what is the difference, if at all, is there between supply and stock? Is there any difference? Yes, it is so. If you say this is the stock of good with somebody, so supply is a subset of it, right? Stock is bigger, supply is smaller. He keeps a stock every day with him. He has got huge, things in the godown. But what quantity out of that godown is taken out to sell today becomes a part of supply, right? Then when you talk about supply and stock, let's see. So these are the different quantities which he is ready to sell at different possible prices at a point of time, right? And when you talk about stock, it's the total quantities available with him for present or for future sale. As I told you, if this is the stock with him, supply is a subset. So stock means if he is talking about present with this, so this includes present as well as the future dates. So supply is a flow concept. We are talking about how much has been supplied during this period, but it's a flow. It's not a flow concept. It's a stock concept because at any point of time it is measured. It's always related to the prices of the commodities, right? It's the inventory concept. Okay. It's not related to the prices. And when you talk about supply and quantity supplied, as we did in the demand chapter, let us see if these are the prices and this is the quantity supplied, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and here the trend would be the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be discussed later. So if you talk about this, the whole expression becomes the supply. Means what is the probable supply of something in the market at these 3 or 4 different prices. But when you talk about quantity supplied, it's always with respect to a particular price. So particular price means we are talking about particular quantity, and when we are talking about generalized many different prices, it means this is the availability or the supply in the market. Okay. Now, schedule, the tabular representation, and schedule is done for individual as well as market. So when we talk about the relationship, and it is presented for an individual, right? Which type of relationship? Different prices and different quantities. So the price of X, if it is this, then the quantities are these, right? What does this very first row tell you? At price 5, the quantity supplied by individual producer is 0. It means it is not conducive for him to sell at this price. He is not able to recover the cost. So there is no supply at his part when prices offered to him are 5. So he can supply beyond this, right? So at 10, he is able to sell 10 units. At 15, he is able to sell 20 units. So this way, it's the supply schedule given for the individual. When you talk about market means we are combining many individual suppliers together. For the sake of simplicity and convenience, we have taken 2 suppliers, firm A and firm B here, to make the market. Right. So it's clear from this that at price 5, neither A nor B is willing to give any supply because the price is too low for them and they are not probably able to recover their prices or, their expected profits. Okay. Then if the price rises to 10, this firm A is good to go for 10 units, but the other is still having just some constraints and is willing to give only 5 units at this level. Right. So when we talk about market supply, what do? We simply go for linear summation of what all can be supplied by all the individuals in the market. See, at price 20, the quantity supplied in the market is 30 plus 15, that makes 45. Okay. And when you talk about its curve, the curve becomes flatter. So curve and slope, let's see, individual means it's a positively sloping curve as contrast to the demand curve which was going down. The supply curve is moving up. So it has got a positive slope or moves upwards. Why so? Because when the prices rise, they are expected to have better benefits in terms of profit. So at higher prices, they wish to sell high quantities, right? So there is a positive relationship between price and quantity. Okay. So when we talk about market supply curve, individual supply curves are steeper because the quantity is less by one particular individual. But when it comes to the market, it is the linear sum total of this and this curve, curve 1 A and curve B. So this curve becomes flatter. You must understand whenever you are making the individual curves, and if you're making in one particular frame, you can't be making this way that this is A, this is B, this is market. No, it will be taken as wrong. You should be giving, if this is A and this is B, so it should be flatter. This is the correct presentation, supplied by A and supplied by B. Okay. So this is steeper and the market curve is flatter. And the slope, what is the formula? Formula is change on y-axis with respect to change on x-axis. This is the universal formula applicable in any field, maybe in chemistry, maybe in mathematics, right? So let us see, what do we have on y-axis? We have delta P on y-axis, right? Price is mentioned. So how do we calculate slope? Slope is calculated by delta P by delta Q because delta P is there on the y-axis, right? Rate of change on y-axis with respect to the rate of change on x-axis. So the ratio of delta P by delta Q is the slope of supply curve. And then we come on the topic supply function, the functional relationship. As I've told you before also, functional relationship means all these are the factors affecting supply, and any change on right hand side will bring a change on this supply, right? So what are these factors of production? First and foremost factor is own price of the commodity. As we see that how does supply curve move? It moves this way. It means we have already seen that if the prices are higher, the suppliers are willing to sell more of their commodities because they are expected to have better profits with that. Okay. So it's a positive relationship when it comes to the price of X and the supply of X. Mind you, X is written over here. Okay. Then we talk about the price of related goods. Now, mind you, in demand, we had the related goods like substitute goods or complementary goods, but this is not so. Related goods means anything which he can switch to. If the person is having some infrastructure, right? So it's his wish. Related goods means if he finds that working in or dealing in clothes is better than dealing in footwear, so he may switch to footwear or to clothes, which gives him a better potential, right? So here related does not mean the substitute goods or the complementary goods. It simply says that, now listen, if the prices of related goods are higher, if he is dealing in good X, right, and the related goods are say Y, and the prices of Y are going higher, it means Y has got a better potential of profits as compared to X. So there is a good chance that if he is dealing in X, he is lured by this Y and he switches to Y. So what would be the result if the prices of Y are higher? That the supply of X would fall. Okay. Now the number of firms in the market, of course, yes, more the firms, more the supplier, more the supply then. Okay, so it's a clear positive relationship. Goal of the firm. Now, if the goal is to maximize profits, so the only thing is they will be the quantities or the supply would be offered at higher prices only. But at times you would have seen that some people do not enter the market with profit maximization, but they want to trap the market. So they are willing to sell at even the lower prices because they want their product to be there with the consumer and they have a future orientation, right? So you must be clear that with goal also it matters that supply is more today or not, right? If it's the price and the profit maximization, then the supply may fluctuate up and down. But if it is not the profit maximization, market share and all, so the supplies would be higher irrespective of low prices. Then the price of factors of production. Now, what does this mean? Price of factor of production relates to cost of production. So if the prices of factors of production means if the cost of making is going higher, it means the expected profits are falling, right? So it means this would have a negative impact on supply and hence the supply is expected to fall in such cases, right? And opposite also is true. If the prices of factors of production are going down or are expected to go down, then profits would be behaving otherwise and hence the supply would also be increasing. Then the state of technology, very clear, simple. I hope you have also got to know better technology, better supplies, because that simply results in low cost of production, and cost of production when falls, it relates to higher profits. Right. And then expected future price. This is a beautiful point, a trap at times for the students. How and why? Expected future prices means if, say, the person has got this much content, stock at his godown, if he's expecting that the prices today are going to be higher, what would be his reaction today? He'll try to hold the things today that better to sell at higher prices tomorrow, right? So if expected future prices are higher, then today's supply will fall. And if he's expecting that during nearby future, means maybe tomorrow onwards and all, the prices are going to just crash. So his supply, he will simply bring the whole thing, everything from the godown out for sales today only, because he doesn't want to bear any loss, right? And then comes the government policy. Government policy is talked about in taxation and subsidy terms. Subsidy is a positive term for producers. Taxation is a negative term. Higher taxation means higher cost for him, and hence supply would be going down. But when the subsidies are given, it means his cost of production reduces, and hence the profits have a better potential, and hence the supply is expected to be higher. I hope all these points are very much clear to you. Now let's move to the law of supply, as we had the law of demand. On a very similar note, we have the law of supply, and we have that word. Are you able to recall? Ceteris paribus. So let us just check where that word is. I'll try to, whenever it comes across. Other things remaining the same is its meaning, right? Other things remaining same, there is a positive relationship between own price and the quantity supplied. So this is the law. And we have actually used this before also in the previous section of this very chapter, right? And as I've told you several times, whenever there is any law, so we have to define it, we have to give the assumptions, followed by schedule and curve, and then the explanation, right? So with this all, we would be able to have full on full marks. So we have already given the definition that it states that other things remaining the same or constant, the quantity supplied increases with increase in its own price and vice versa. So tabular representation would be, you have to show this increasing. So this also would be increasing, okay? And it has got a positive slope, so it is moving upwards. So this is the diagrammatic presentation. And how would you explain? You would be explaining that as it is clear from the diagram and the table that there exists a positive relationship at price P, the quantity supplied is Q. When the price rises to P1, the quantity supplied becomes Q1, which is increased, right? And when you talk about assumptions, I want all of you to be back to the factors affecting supply. So supply of X is a function of demand of the price of X, price of related goods. What else was there? Price of factors of production, the government policies, the goals of organization, the technology. So all these are the factors. So when we are talking about the relationship between the price and the supply, what are the assumptions going to be? Assumptions are all these factors are constant. So mind this, and this becomes your assumption. So all these points separately when are written give you 5 points of assumption, right? Like there is no change in the price of factors of production, no change in technique of production, no change in the goal, no change in the price of related good, and no change in the price of the commodity in the near future. And the government policies also remain the same. So this is about the assumption, means the assumption of constancy of other factors, right? And then we have the topic exceptions to the law of supply. What does that mean? When we say exceptions, how did we deal it in demand? I just told you that when price of X and quantity of X are not going in the opposite direction, so that becomes an exception. It means irrespective of increased price, that the quantity is increasing, that's a case of exception. On a very similar note, when we talk about supply, what's the relationship? With the rise in price, the quantity rises, right, of X. So if we see that irrespective of rise in price, the quantity is remaining constant or is not rising or is falling, it means that point becomes the point of exception. Then Which are the points? First is the agricultural output. We know that agriculture is a time-taking phenomenon. What does it mean? Say if we take 6 months for its harvest, so irrespective of higher and higher and higher prices of wheat, would you be able to give or deliver the wheat just the next day or just the next month? No, it's not possible. Then goods of social distinction, right? These will remain limited even if their price tends to rise. Okay. And then you have perishable goods. The sellers may be willing to sell more of the perishable goods even at a lower price. Why so? Because the shelf life is short and hence the risk involved is more. Okay. So with these exceptions, we come to the closure of today's lecture. See you in the next video, and we would be talking about the movement and shift in the supply curves. Till then, see ya. Have a great day. Bye.